Welcome to the Vault Excel. Hope you all are well. Had a wonderful weekend. Please stay hydrated and cool. This commentary is pertaining to the gunman, Thomas Matthew Crooks. The area where he was perched on top of a building, it was not swept by Secret Service and obviously not manned by the police. Information has come to light that the police was in charge of that area where he was posted. No charges will be filed in this attack against former President Trump, and also his detail has increased, as well as Vice President Kamala Harris and President Biden. As most of you know, the Republican National Convention has set soil in Milwaukee, currently on at the moment. Let's talk about this situation with the shooter and the building. CNN News is the source. Secret Service did not sweep building the shooter used. Thank you for joining me.
Learning shocking new details about the attempted assassination of Donald Trump over the weekend. A Secret Service spokesman tells CNN that agents did not personally sweep the building where the gunman was perched at Saturday's rally. The source says one of two local counter snipers was supposed to be covering that very building. The Pennsylvania State Police says they were not responsible for that area. The head of the Secret Service, we should know, Kimberly Cheadle, announced this morning that the agency will fully participate in the independent review announced by President Biden. And a senior law enforcement official says the gunman, who was identified as 20-year-old Thomas Crooks, bought 50 rounds of ammo just before that rally. Meanwhile, the video highlights the moments leading up to the shooting. The crowd saw the shooter on the roof and appeared to be getting into position while the former president was talking about immigration to the crowd. Take a listen to what happened next.
Yeah, look, there he is. We have
Intermission. Once again, as I said before, with this commentary pertaining to the behavior of people there, this is bizarre to me. Now you have footage showing people pointing at the gunman on top of a building, and it's, oh my goodness. I don't know what kind of world we're in. As I said, I've been in two scenarios, as I said before, where I didn't flinch, with someone shooting outside and shooting inside of a little place where I was many years ago. The person ran out of the building, and I was downstairs at the bar, and I didn't duck, of course, because I knew he was going to run out of the building. That's just what I thought. He's going to run out. He's not going to run around where I am, start shooting. That wouldn't make any sense for what? Not saying he couldn't have, but this to me is more crazy because you're getting an eye view of the shooter. So this is even more crazy than the behavior of the people who were behind the stage, in the audience. You are looking at a person on top of a building, and you're just standing there pointing, and you're yelling for the police, and you're probably yards away from where people can hear. There's probably a lot of noise going on. Allegedly, Trump is talking. So who's going to hear you? All they're going to see is your mouth moving and your hands waving. Okay? It's like anything. It's like being at a concert. If you're so many yards away from somebody and you're waving your hand, you're waving your arms, if people are trying to focus on the person speaking, performing, why are they going to be looking at you? Do you understand what I'm saying? You might get 1 to 2 people that might be looking to say, looks like something's going on over there. Nobody's going to hear you. Especially when you're yards away, 100-something yards away, 150 yards away or so. Nobody's going to hear you. They're just going to see your mouth moving, your arms moving. So you've got that scenario there. People hollering and screaming, trying to get attention to let alert police that the guy's on top of the building. And then the people who are doing the hollering and the screaming and the yelling at the at the guy, you're still standing there. Help me understand the logic. To stand and watch and film a person on top of a building, whether they were sitting up, Indian style, lying on their stomach, their back, why are you still standing there? Help me understand the logic. It never dawned on any of you that he could shoot you while you're pointing? Damn, come on. I don't understand people. I just don't. I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I'm walking by somewhere. And I see somebody perched on top of a building. As I said, whether they're lying down on their stomach, sitting upright, standing up. I'm going to stand there and watch them with a fucking rifle. Help me understand. This makes no fucking sense to me. We live in a bizarre society.
Yeah, look, there it is. We have
crazy. Oh my God.
Let's bring in CNN law enforcement analyst Whitney Wild and CNN chief law enforcement and intelligence analyst John Miller. Whitney, let me go to you first. Do we have an answer from the Secret Service as to why they did not sweep this building? I mean, I've covered so many rallies over the years, and these outdoor rallies in particular are very worrisome, and one has to think that that's standard operating procedure, that they would sweep this building.
So here's how this perimeter worked. This building was outside of the perimeter. So our understanding is that the Secret Service, that agency, did not sweep that building, but instead they left that to local law enforcement. So when you consider how perimeters are built out, there are basically concentric circles of responsibility here. So there's sort of a first line and a second line. And in this case, the Secret Service had deferred to the security of that building to local law enforcement. Ultimately, though, the Secret Service is responsible for the totality of that incident. Again, as you pointed out, a source tells CNN that
Let's hear back what she said. Who's responsible?
They left that to local law enforcement. So when you consider how perimeters are built out, there are basically concentric circles of responsibility here. So there's sort of a first line and a second line. And in this case, the Secret Service had deferred to the security of that building to local law enforcement. Ultimately, though, the Secret Service is responsible for the totality of that incident.
So basically, police were assigned that area where the shooter was designated on top of the building. But as she said here, and I'm assuming she knows what she's saying, if not, it can be corrected, that Secret Service is responsible. But see, that's not logical. It's easy to say, yeah, they're responsible. But as I just said yesterday, if you weigh everything at hand, you're out in the middle of nowhere. You're in no man's land. So a person could come out of the sky, literally, and drop down onto a field where people are sitting, which is the stage and the audience and the rafters. Anybody, a group of people could have came, ran up out of nowhere with heavy utility, weapons, tractor trailer, whatever. What people have done. You understand what I'm saying? Because look at the behavior of these people here, some of these people here. The time you spent pointing at the gunman, you could have ran to try to tell an officer or someone in a uniform, hey, there's a guy up here on the building. So we're only talking about a couple yards, 150 yards or so. Because from the area view, they don't look too far away, but far enough, like I said, nobody's going to be paying attention to you if they're not watching you to see why you're waving your arms and your hands. You could have ran up to an officer and say, hey, we need you over here quick. We need you over here quick. It didn't dawn on anybody to even call 911 if you didn't want to run over there to the police. See, that's why I said none of this make any sense. Because I don't understand why I'm going to be standing here pointing at a shooter. I'm not getting ready to be pointing at him. He's already shot. He's already murdered one person, shot at Trump, and shot at some other people. More than one person got shot and nipped. Let's keep it real. So I'm trying to understand the ideology to stand there and be pointing at somebody with a fucking gun. So I'm sitting here like, you know, why aren't you all on your phones calling the police? Somebody should have said, well, we can't get their attention, or I ain't running over there. Somebody. And then the consensus of the people when he got hit, some people were ducking down. But then once they saw him jump up, put his fist up, they're filming. And I'm just like, what planet are these people from? What planet are these people from? I have never seen this type of behavior nowhere I've been where people were shooting. And then I jogged my memory back to being in a nightclub once. They got to shooting. Matter of fact, I've been inside. Matter of fact, I've been a few places where they were shooting. Inside of a club, they locked the door. Everybody scattered. Nobody was running out trying to see the fucking shooter. Another time coming out of a nightclub, we were running for our lives. Nobody was on their fucking cell phone. Because at that time, this was the early 2000s, nobody was doing the filming tragedies. And we ran for cover. And it was a dangerous situation because of the way the cars were set up. They were tight, ass in. Very dangerous. Just to get out of there was dangerous. But that's the point. People ran. Nobody was standing on the building trying to talk and film and call Pookie and Ray Ray to tell them, oh, guess what? They're shooting right here. This is what's wrong with the world. People need to check themselves because this fascination with crime will get you killed. Because I don't know anybody with some sense that would stand there and watch a person with a fucking gun and just be standing there pointing. And then you find out later he did kill somebody. And the gunfire hit a few people. Because really only talking about the 2 injured and the 1 that's dead. And Trump. But allegedly 2 other people got hit, got nipped. So that's why I'm saying, you're standing there watching a person with a firearm and there is a dead person now. I never heard of such.
Again, as you pointed out, a source tells CNN that a local counter sniper team was responsible for covering that building. Additionally, I've been told that that building was considered a post. And what that means is that somebody was supposed to be there. Who that person is, we don't know yet. As I've been talking to other sources about how this would work, there are sort of 2 scenarios here. So there's a scenario where you actually have somebody assigned to the building, they are not allowed to leave, or you have somebody who's in a roaming post. And these are all the questions that we're trying to figure out. Was this a roaming post? Was somebody supposed to be physically at that building who simply wasn't there? And if so, which agency was responsible for that? And then further, the big question for the Secret Service is, what did they tell local law enforcement to do? Because there seems to be some confusion about roles and responsibilities here. Jim, back to the significance of the sweep. The reality is a sweep very early in the day may not have prevented an incident like this. The reality is this gunman was seen at the perimeter with a firearm outside of the perimeter, later got onto the roof. So, that's later in the day. A sweep that occurs in the morning, the impact of that is virtually impossible to say, possibly a moot point. But this is all helpful context in understanding how this day unfolded, where the Secret Service's mind was operationally, and whose responsibility was where in terms of this overall security plan, Jim.
Yeah, Johnny, what's your reaction to all of this? I mean,
Now, when I look at the video of the distance of them standing watching the building versus the other people scattered around, it's a nice little distance to where, as I said, if you're just focusing on where they're standing versus where security would have been over where Trump and other people were, they wouldn't even know probably what you're talking about, waving your hands and stuff. Just from this little area view I'm saying on the ground. Because people aren't going to be paying attention to what you're doing if I'm there to watch somebody else. This is all bizarre to me. This is some bizarre nonsense.
All too well about how local law enforcement has to coordinate with Secret Service on protecting in these kinds of situations. But it just seems to me that this is sort of descending into finger pointing. It seems like the Secret Service should have had a handle on this, whether it was left to law enforcement or not.
Well, obviously, looking back in hindsight, it's quite clear that that building was a vulnerability. How do we know that? Because it was exploited as one, and
right.
The former president was almost killed. Looking at it from a systemic problem, what Whitney says is dead on, which is the Secret Service owns the inner perimeter. They share the mid perimeter with local law enforcement. And the outer perimeter usually falls to local law enforcement. Now, when I had the Secret Service in New York, when we were moving President Trump, President Obama, President Biden through the streets, we had 36,000 police officers. So we were able to fill a lot of those gaps. But in a small area like Butler County, local law enforcement is short.
Exactly.
The Secret Service is also an undersized agency.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at the number of personnel they had at the Chicago convention prepping, the number of personnel they had in Milwaukee getting ready, the number of personnel they had on the First Lady trip, the people they had with the president, that's why they lean so heavily on local law enforcement. And in this case, they're going to be looking at every rally going forward very differently.
Absolutely.
I'm glad he said that because, yes, finger pointing is what's going on right now. But if you look at the area view from a drone, you're talking about vast land. And that's someone said the other day. If you're just going to, try to chop it up and compartmentalize this situation, you're supposed to really have a secured of maybe a mile. So common sense will tell you that piece of property would be probably shorter than a mile from where people actually stood watching the building over to where the stage was. You also supposed to have had the whole street blocked off. That's why I keep trying to say, ain't nobody paying attention. Anybody could have came and bogarted this event. Anybody could have gotten together with anybody, plural. Hey, let's storm the gate. Hell, they did it in Washington. You think they couldn't have done it right there? Hell, one person took down this little bitty arena. A 20-year-old. A 20-year-old took down the show, literally. So think about if it was a lot of people who decided to conspire. As I said, protesters could have came. It would have been a hot butter mess because it was too much area. Too much area to cover. And so that's up to whomever running the show and local officials to decide how many people needed to work to cover each area, from entry points to inside the arena that they've got roped off. That would be, the chairs, the rafters, and the stage. And then outside of that, allegedly would be the police, and that would be the land going out towards the outbuildings. That's supposed to be the police's post. So who was supposed to be actually walking through, standing around, and or perched up on top of the buildings? So, but naturally, all the fault's going to be on Secret Service, because they're the ones who are allegedly guarding Trump. But then that makes no sense to some degree. You're going to say, well, we're going to put it all on the Secret Service. Okay, but then what would be the purpose in hiring these other people then? Then you didn't need them then. But then in the end, when you look at the totality, they did need them. But they weren't there. So really, who do you blame? Because as they have said, which is very pivotal, people need to understand, his detail is not the same as when he was a sitting president. So you got to ask, and I asked this in my early morning live. Please check out the live I did this morning. How many people were assigned to him that day from Secret Service? Not the sheriff, not state police, not local police departments, but Secret Service. How many people escorted him to Butler, Pennsylvania? That's what needs to be revealed. How many people were there and where were their posts at this time? Because they can't be everywhere. So that's why you need a head count of how many people from Secret Service only escorted Trump to the arena. How many agents? Now, how many people were on the ground that were LE in the perimeter? And what were their duties specifically? Because somebody's going to have to stand account naturally for the outbuildings. And I'm telling you, just from looking at the outbuildings and the land, on how many acres we're talking, you can't see behind you or beside you because you only got two eyes. So that means you would need help just because of the way it's set up with the outbuildings. See, a structure like where they are right now in Milwaukee, it's not the same as out in the open. You got trees, full bloom, and if it's a full tree, are you looking at a tree to see if somebody's sitting in a tree? See, nobody's thinking about none of that. There are trees out there. You could be sitting in a tree. And you get a person that's small, that could hide easily in a tree, wear green camouflage. Are you looking at a tree? Probably not. Anyway, they needed more people around the outbuildings and probably the front too, because my thing is you can't just sit and focus either on those outbuildings. That just happens to be where the gunman was. But as I just said, it was a free fall for a disaster because you're in open space. You're not in a closed up space. You're not in an amphitheater. You're not in a convention center. And even with a place like where they are now in Milwaukee, that's a big place. You know, I don't know the square footage of that place. You've got to check every aisle, every seat, every vent, the roof, closets, utility closet, hallways, bathrooms. You got to have a lot of manpower. And they've called in other agencies to do that in Milwaukee. As they said, we've prepared for 18 months. Still not to say that something bad could not happen. Of course. But right here, this is different the way this is set up out in Butler. You're talking about vast land. Vast. You got to have somebody almost like when they're searching for people that are missing. What do? Foot to foot, hand to hand, arm to arm. That's what you literally would have to have out there. And you'd have to have that from the outbuildings, probably going back, oh my God, I can't even imagine how many yards, football yards, to keep it covered. So you're talking about the sides of the arena that's, warded off, the outbuildings, plus the entry points coming into the arena. Sweet Jesus, you know how many people that would be? you need a lot of more people. So how many people total were on the ground in law enforcement, including Secret Service agents?
Well, you have to wonder, how the Secret Service is going to be able to go forward with these outdoor rallies. And Whitney, the head of the Secret Service, says the agency will fully participate in this independent review that was announced by the president. Who's conducting that? What does that entail? And I have to think there are going to be questions raised as soon as there's a White House briefing over at the White House. The question is going to be asked, does the president still have confidence in the Secret Service director?
Very true. Or himself.
That is a major question here, Jim. I spoke with someone shortly after.
Well, I'm going to say this. As I said, Mr. Trump is a very defiant type of human being. So what you have to ask yourself is, it was up to him to also say how many people he thought he would need. Once again, they don't give him a big detail. So as I said, how many people are he allotted as a detail? See, all that's going to matter. Did he have his own private company alongside the detail? And then once again, how many people were on the ground that were law enforcement? Because in the end, he should have the final say because it's his rodeo. It's not Butler. It's not, the people in the stands. It's his rodeo. So you're out here in the middle of nowhere. You should tell yourself, well, we've announced this. You don't know who's going to show up or show out. I think I might need, this amount of people or this amount of people. So was there a consensus and a conversation of how many people needed to be on the ground to cover him? Did he specifically talk to somebody about needing more or less people to guard him? Because like I said, most people know how Trump operates. He's a very hard person to conversate with. And for all we know, they could have said, well, we really do need more people. And he probably said, nah, we all right, we cool. And they rode with it. So what was the conversation between Trump and the Secret Service, whoever was orchestrating the Secret Service, and also law enforcement?
The president announced that he was seeking an independent review. It is not clear that the Secret Service has been formally notified that anybody is conducting this review. That's not to say that there isn't one. I'm just saying that as of my most recent conversation, they had not been notified that a formal one was organized and underway. So it is not clear if this is going to be somebody from the outside. Is this going to be a commission? Is it going to rely on the Department of Homeland Security, Office of the Inspector General? These are all questions we're waiting to find out, Jim.
More on this. Washington Post reporter Emily Davies joins me now. She's been on the ground in the shooter's hometown of Bethel Park, Pennsylvania. Emily, this is a real mystery because typically by now in a mass shooting or an event like this, we know a whole lot more about the shooter's motive, but that seems to be kind of a mystery at this point. What have you been able to learn?
Yeah, that's right. People here are really shocked. It's a small community. A lot of people have heard of him, but people who went to school with him describe him as quiet, and everyone is sort of glued to these TV screens all over town trying to figure out how this person existed so close by without any real obvious sign of trouble.
And how is the community responding? I mean, obviously, everybody must still be in shock.
Yeah, everyone is really in shock. It's that line that you never think this is going to happen in your town, and then you wake up in the morning and you see Bethel Park on the TV screen at your favorite diner, and you're stunned. I mean, that's what I've been hearing from people. People here see Bethel Park as a family place. It's easy to raise kids here. People talk about a sort of civility and neighborly spirit. And so having this sort of attention on their community for an incident this violent is really surprising to people.
And what else can you tell us about how the shooter was seen in this community? I mean, it sounds as though people did not see this coming.
No, Bethel Park High School has about 400 people per grade. And so the students who I talked to who were in his graduating class had spent time around him. He was in homeroom with one girl who I spent some good time with. And she described him as a quiet kid, but he was nice to the people who he interacted with. And there was really nothing at school that she said stood out to her as surprising. And she spent at least 20 minutes with him every morning for 4 years. So yeah, people are really surprised, and I think that speaks to some of the mystery of this whole thing.
Yeah, investigators still trying to get to a motive in all of this. Emily Davies with the Washington Post. Thank you very much.
All right, everybody, that's CNN News. A lot of conversations going on on news broadcasts pertaining to this debacle that took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. I do not have an update on the two men who were hospitalized, but I do know one is decedent. We have a decedent. I think there were two other people who were nipped by the bullet. And then, of course, Mr. Trump was hit in the ear. And he has decided he still wants to go forward with this campaign and speak at the Republican National Convention, which is taking place in Milwaukee. I have a few notes here, then I will go over all the latest information pertaining to the shooter. So far, the FBI has gotten into his phone, and they are still searching for a motive and said information in his device. Once again, Secret Service has increased the detail to Trump while he will be traveling for this convention. Also, adjustments have been made to President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris's protective details. We also hear that in this commentary by CNN that the young man bought 50 rounds, although on their screen they had 500. So I don't know if that was a typo or not. The gun was purchased 11 years ago by the father. The young man told his father he was going to the gun range to do some target shooting. The father didn't think anything about it by loaning him the gun because he had done so before. Okay. All searches are complete of Mr. Crook's home and his car. Now, devices were found in the car and bomb-making materials were found inside of the home. 100 law enforcement individuals, witnesses, and people on the ground have been interviewed pertaining to the events that took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. The Secret Service will address the House Committee of Oversight and Accountability on Monday, July 22nd at 10 a.m. Some people are possibly also expecting Kimberly Cheadle to explain what happened at that rally. If she decides to address the public, what is she going to say? Will there be some accountability of who was supposed to be in charge of the outbuildings and the perimeters allotted by the police? Was somebody supposed to be on top of the building or standing in, around, beside, or behind the buildings? I do not know. Once again, local police and tactical team were in charge of that area where you saw the gunman lying deceased. It is being said that the property obviously was not swept, nor the rooftop access was not properly locked down. Those are the notes I have thus far pertaining to the said information at hand. Once again, Mr. Trump has also announced Mr. Vance, Senator Vance, as his running mate for vice president. Lord, he's going to need it. Ooh, honey, he's going to need it. God bless America. Check out my live from yesterday. Did one yesterday and early this morning. I'm going to read you a little bit of information pertaining to everything that I've just mentioned to you. Thank you for joining me. If you'd like to donate to this great network, $McAndrew, 129 Cash App, stickers and chats are always welcome during the live stream. I will be bringing you another live later pertaining to Taylor Casey. There's some information I want to bring to you that's very pivotal in the case at the moment. ABC7.com is the source. Federal authorities are investigating after former President Donald Trump was shot in the ear in an assassination attempt at an election rally, Butler, Pennsylvania, on Saturday. Blood splattered on Trump's face as Secret Service agents surrounded him and led him off the stage to a waiting vehicle to whisk him away. Trump is fine, the spokesperson said. The alleged shooter was killed by snipers. Corey Caporatori, a firefighter and a father of 2 daughters, died in the shooting. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro said 2 other people attended the rally were also injured. So it just goes on to talk about that he's doing fine. Someone asked if the close call to the bullet striking his head changed him. Trump said, I don't like to think about that, but yes, I think it has an impact. Will it change him? Will it change his disposition? Now that he's been shot? Some people will wonder. Some people may not care. Trump said his ear is doing fine and that he hopes the bandage will be off by the time he speaks on Thursday at the Republican National Convention. Trump speaks on Biden call. Well, here we go. Here comes the nonsense already. Donald Trump spoke with ABC News' Jonathan Karl over the phone on Monday for a 10-minute conversation, touching on his phone call with President Joe Biden after the assassination attempt Saturday. It was very nice, Trump said. He couldn't have been nicer. Oh, I thought he was going to say he wasn't nice. I was going to say, what is the nonsense now? Once again, he said it was very nice, Trump said. He couldn't have been nicer. He then marveled at the people who called him after the assassination attempt, including very prominent people who have been harshly critical of him. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas announced an independent review of the shooting and said it will be launched in days. We are indeed in the process of selecting who will lead the independent review. The findings indeed will be made public, he said. It is very important that we achieve transparency so that the American people have confidence in the work of the review and its findings and recommendations. Hold on one second. Sorry about that. A lot of background noise. Hold on, everybody. Okay, sorry. Background noise. Where was I? Okay, so Mayorkas, they're going to be doing an independent review. Once again, he said it's very important that we achieve transparency so that the American people have confidence in the work of the review and its findings and recommendations. And we need to move with swiftness and urgency because this is a security imperative. Mayorkas said he was committed to going externally of the government so that no question of his independence can be raised. Mayorkas told reporters he has 100% confidence in Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheatham, and White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said President Joe Biden also has confidence in the director. Biden told reporters Monday that he has faith in his own Secret Service detail and faith in the agency. So Biden has spoken about his own detail and that he has faith in them. So that's the question of the hour. Does Trump have faith in the current detail that he has? Does he have faith in him? White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre declined direct comment when, hold on, let's see. Lord, this keeps jumping off. Sorry about that. Karine Jean-Pierre declined direct comment when asked about Vance being quick to blame Biden for the attempt on Trump's life. Yeah, that's a low blow. Why are you blaming the president because of what happened in Butler? Jeez. I'm not going to politicize this moment. We're not going to politicize this moment. It is wrong to politicize this moment, Jean-Pierre said Monday at her daily White House press briefing. She repeated what Biden said about lowering the temperature and uniting the country when he addressed the nation on Sunday night. Exactly. See, that's what's wrong with people. Just as quick as something happens that's deemed terrible, you still go right in for the jugular to make it worse. Vance, you of all people, you're just getting on a ticket with Donald Trump. Why are you having anything to say? You shouldn't be saying anything. See, this is the type of rhetoric we're talking about. That's the reason why everybody's always at odds with each other. You had no right to even say any shit like that. That's just a low blow. What does Biden have to do with what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania? Nothing. And I find it interesting that former Vice President Pence hasn't said anything publicly about his comrade being shot and the events in Butler. So, Pence, do you have anything you'd like to say pertaining to the events Saturday? Since everybody else is putting their 2 cents in, everybody's got something to say about what happened in Butler, but weren't there. But that's a low blow to even say anything and blame a sitting president for what happened in Butler. So you people have gone from blaming the Secret Service to now the president of the United States. And you're just now being put on the ticket with Donald Trump. And this is all you have to do is come out and say something that crass. See, this is the reason why people can't get along. Because there are people who like to incite drama. So how are you going to have unification and you're making a derogatory comment like that about the president? That's just fucked up. Secret Service protection has been increased for former President Donald Trump, Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said. The enhancement is based on the evolving nature of threats to the former president and his imminent shift from presumptive nominee to nominee. Mayorkas said this includes enhancements related to securing the former president during the Republican National Convention this week. I cannot discuss specifics as they involve sensitive tactics and procedures. I can say, however, that personnel and other protective resources, technology, and capabilities have been added. Adjustments have also been made to President Joe Biden's and Vice President Kamala Harris's protective details, Mayorkas said. I'm going to say right here, I was listening earlier to the mayor of Milwaukee talk about the Republican convention that's taking place. And once again, I didn't even get in the conversation 2 minutes listening. Here comes somebody bringing up what happened Saturday. What does the mayor of Milwaukee have to do with Butler? Nothing. Why are you all just going to keep beating this dead horse? Keep asking people stuff that they cannot give you information to. It's baffling to me. He can only speak of what he's doing in Milwaukee. They made it clear yesterday what they're going to be doing, how many people are, what's going to be on the ground. They got different agencies working to aid this convention, outside and inside. National government, local police, and other agencies. He can't speak on anything but what's going on in Milwaukee. He can't speak of what happened in Butler. So why even ask? And he gives you the same answer that he gave you yesterday alongside the RNC coordinator who works for the Secret Service. They gave you the same answer yesterday or the day before. She, the mayor, the chief of police of Milwaukee, they specifically told you they got it under control in Milwaukee to the best of their ability, that they planned this event 18 months in advance, that they have other agencies working. And yet the mayor does an interview today, a press conference, and yet you still want to beat a dead horse about what are you doing? What are you doing? What's going to be different than what happened Saturday? The difference is it ain't outside. That's the difference. if you're paying attention. The difference is they have other agencies helping. They have a bigger police department, sheriff, other agencies. So Milwaukee can bring in people from around the state to work, around jurisdictions, other suburbs, towns. That didn't happen in Butler. What is it that you're confused about? This man had a rally in the middle of nowhere. And just like they said in the commentary I played earlier, it's a small demographic. So common sense would tell you, if you're going in the middle of nowhere, you should use deduction that the police department itself doesn't even have a lot of officers. So you got to count how many people actually work for Butler Police and or Sheriff's Department. How many people were hired or called to duty on that day, Saturday, plus Secret Service, how many agents they had, and if they called in anybody else to aid in the securement of the area. See, we don't even have a head count. We don't even have a head count yet. And yet you want to compare Butler, Pennsylvania, little itty-bitty ass town, to Milwaukee. You can't compare the two because they're not the same. One was outdoors in a small area. The other is in a major city inside of a building. And they have the resources to call in other people to aid in with the convention, to walk the streets, man outside, man inside. They didn't have that in Butler. This is why I don't understand why people just keep going on and on, beating this dead horse with this damn mayor. He doesn't live in Butler. You're just going to keep asking this man the same questions over and over and over again. He already told you the same information at this last press conference with the Secret Service and the chief of police of Milwaukee. Why do you keep asking him about Butler? He can't tell you anything about Butler. He wasn't there. And he wasn't responsible. But this is what I'm talking about right here. This is why I don't like talking about certain subjects, because people are just ignorant as fuck. So ignorant. And then you want somebody to agree with your nonsense. This is nonsense. You're asking somebody who lives in an entirely different city to comment on Butler, Pennsylvania. What could the mayor in Milwaukee tell you about Butler? Nothing. And yet you want him to say what exactly? He can't tell you anything. He can only tell you, he's telling you the same thing he just said last night. And I was sitting there listening today. I was like, this is ridiculous. And I said, I'm not watching another piece of information about this bullshit, because these people just want to beat a dead horse, and you now want to start harassing other people who don't have a dog in the race. They don't have anything to do with Butler, Pennsylvania. It would be ill will for him to speak of anything pertaining to Butler. He can only speak of Milwaukee, what he is doing at the current moment. He and the chief. That's all he can give you. Just like the lady who spoke from the Secret Service, that's the coordinator for the convention. She can't speak of what happened in Butler. She just told you that. She says, I didn't work that detail. I'm working the convention. And yet you still keep asking her questions over and over and over. Every fucking media there kept taking turns asking her the same question, but in a different way. And every time she'd go back to the podium and step up, she just was repeating what she just said 2 minutes ago. And I was just like, this is ridiculous. This world is so backwards. I've never seen people want blood from a turnip. You want her to sit up here and say Secret Service failed him. Well, she can't say it. How about that? She can't say it. Because it wouldn't be right for her to say it. Because she didn't work the detail in Butler. And naturally, she'd have to get permission to give a statement if she worked the detail in Butler. But she did not. So I couldn't understand why now we're on a brand new day. And we're all the way in Milwaukee. And now this little man, the mayor, bless his heart, he can't catch a break. He's positive. He's upbeat. He's trying to let everybody know they're doing their best to keep you safe in Milwaukee. If you want to, attend the convention, and you all are still just beating a dead horse. And I'm sure he was sitting up there exasperated, like, dear God. I was wanting to jump through the screen and say, just cut the damn press conference short. Just say, I thank you for coming. God bless you. Have a wonderful week. Keep it moving. Because you're just going to keep repeating yourself. And that's just stupid. That's a waste of time for a press conference to keep repeating yourself. Come on. Just stop it. Once again, 100 law enforcement officials, attendees, witnesses have been interviewed by the FBI. They are currently investigating this attack on Donald Trump as domestic terrorism, the FBI. On the day of the shooting, the 20-year-old suspected gunman, Thomas Matthew Crooks, told his father that he wanted to go to the gun range, so his dad let him use the AR-15 style rifle, according to a source familiar with the matter. Crooks would occasionally go target shooting and use his father's gun, the source told ABC News. Since this was an unusual occurrence, the father didn't think anything of it at the time, the source said. Crooks recently purchased ammunition both online and in person, the source said. So allegedly he bought 50 rounds of ammunition. So he bought some online and also in person. Now, the flip side of this is going to be the obvious. If you bought something online, common sense will tell you it may take a day to 3 for it to arrive to your home. So when did he put in the order for the ammunition? Because this is very pivotal right here. He bought some in person. Where did he buy that ammunition? Number 2, the online purchase. Oh, Lord. Sorry, you guys. Hold on.